So it's been over 4 years since Resident Evil 7 debuted, the legendary return to the series' roots after the breakaway in Resident Evil 5 and 6, and now finally, we have a follow-up, Resident Evil Village. This game is a freaking masterpiece, and a great spiritual successor to Resident Evil 4. It's an insane game with some freaky good gameplay. It's not perfect, but it's enough to be a possible Game of the Year nominee. There will be some pretty big spoilers, so if you want a spoiler-free review, this isn't one. So without further ado, let's get into Resident Evil Village. The game starts off fiery, with Ethan's home getting invaded and Mia Winters getting killed by Chris Redfield.
Mia. Oh God. Chris? What the hell?
Sorry, Ethan.
No!
They take Rosemary, Ethan's daughter, knock him out, and take him away. They get into a car accident, and Ethan wakes up. He walks for a little bit in the woods with a few jump scares, and it's a pretty tense scene, until he arrives at a mysterious village. He finds himself with a man with a shotgun freaking out. Eventually, something breaks through the ceiling and takes the dude away. Then Ethan gets dragged under the house. He finds a few dead bodies, a bunch of dead bodies, and sees something moving. And then suddenly, a lichen bites onto his hands, and bites 2 fingers and that entire side of his hand off. You fight it, kill it, and get thrown into a fight with a ton more lichens. This is basically the Resident Evil 4 opening, but in my opinion, much more insane and brutal. This giant one with a hammer eventually comes and starts chasing you, but suddenly a bell rings, and all of the lichens run away. This is the most brutal Resident Evil opening in the series, in my opinion. I feel so bad for Ethan. First his wife gets killed, then his child gets abducted, then he gets in a crash, then he gets his hand bitten in half, and a lot more is in store for Ethan later, and I promise you, it's not good things. Then you're free to explore, after meeting this weird old woman.
It's you, the child's father.
Child? Hey, wait. Do you mean Rose? Is she here?
Rose! Rose, yes. She is in great danger. Since Mother Miranda brought her to the village, we have fallen into darkness.
What are you talking about? The monsters?
You make your way to Louise's house, with a sick father and his daughter.
Is this all that's left? From your entire village?
All that's left. All that's left? There is no one left! A worthless invalid, a stupid, wailing bitch, and you! You drag a bloody man and an outsider in here like it's nothing, and expect to be all safe? There is no safe! Every sorry bastard out there has been ripped in half. But tomorrow we'll all be dead. Just like her damn husband.
And oh, what a surprise. The father turns into a lichen and kills everybody.
What are you doing?
Leonardo, what's wrong? Are you okay?
Elena, no, stay back!
No, let me go!
He'll kill us both! We have to go!
You and Elena break out into the attic, where she thinks her father is still alive and sees him walking on the crumbling wood. He says her name, and she gets fooled. She tries to help him, but eventually he falls into the fire, and she fails to grab onto Ethan's hand and falls into the fire herself. Ethan finally gets into the castle, but of course, he gets kidnapped by Heisenberg, one of the 4 lords under Mother Miranda.
Must be pretty tough. Huh. Who the are you? Oh, you're not local. Even better.
Mother Miranda's gonna love you.
Then a cutscene plays, which really reminds me of the iconic dinner scene from Resident Evil 7.
Entertaining foreigners. Furthermore, I can assure you, if you entrust the mortal to House Dimitrescu, my daughters and I shall deliver to you one.
Hey, ugly! I wanna see! He's awake!
Will you shut the f*** up?
Where?
You mean you'll screw around with him in private, and where's the fun in that? Give him to me, and I'll put on a show that everybody can enjoy.
Ugh, so gauche. What do we care for bread and circuses? The man thinks suffering is assured.
Yak, yak, as a man's is cut off in the castle, blah, blah, blah.
I've heard all your arguments. Some of you were less persuasive than others, but I've made my decision. Heisenberg, the man's fate is in your hands.
Mother Miranda, I must protest. Heisenberg is but a child, and his devotion to you is questionable. Give the mortal to me, and I will ensure he is ready.
Shut your damn hole! And don't be a sore loser! You'll find your food somewhere else.
Quiet now, child. Adults are talking.
I'm the child. You're the one who's arguing with Miranda's decision.
You wouldn't know responsibility if it was welded
Oh,
to
keep
that
growing! One day your head might actually fit your ego!
Hey, don't I get a say in this?
Silence! My decision is final. There will be no argument. Remember from whence you came.
Thank you. Lycans and gentlemen, we thank you for winning. And now let the games begin. Let's see. Ethan Winters.
Then he gets thrown into a psychotic game of chase. And finally, after he escapes, barely, he gets into the castle. In my opinion, this is where the game really starts. And now that you know what happens in the beginning, it's time to get into some other stuff. Gameplay of Resident Evil 8 is similar to Resident Evil 7, but much more open and action-oriented. You find materials and new weapons, craft items, cook food, find treasures, and sell them to this game's biggest new thing, the Duke.
I've been waiting for you, Mr. Winters.
How do you know my name?
Anyone who is anyone has heard of the likes of you. A hero searching for his daughter. Though I must say, that castle arouses suspicion.
Yeah, and so do you.
I am but a humble merchant.
Here?
Oh, forgive my manners. Call me the Duke. Now to business. Weapons, ammunition, healing salves, anything you desire, I can provide. You wish to make a purchase?
You can sell them treasures and other things, and buy helpful items, whether that be ammo, attachments, healing salves, or upgrading your gun's firepower, rate of fire, ammo capacity, and reload speed. This all combines for some insanely fun gameplay, with a great combat circle. There's a large assortment of weapons from a standard shotgun to grenade launchers. This is all great while you find the 4 flasks of Rose. The gameplay is what you would expect, but with some great controls that feel really responsive and never gets old. The sound of Resident Evil 8 is the best sound design I've ever heard, whether that be the sound effects or the voice acting. And don't worry, the acting is actually pretty good for Resident Evil, unlike another game.
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
Stop it! Don't open that door!
I especially like Ethan this time. He didn't react nearly enough for the insane things that happened in Resident Evil 7. The most he would say is just, "This is getting old, Jack," or "Now stay dead." But he isn't a brick this time. He has actual emotion. When he gets his hand bitten in half or sliced off by Dimitrescu, he actually freaks out, unlike barely reacting getting his hand chainsawed in half by his wife.
Blackheart let you get away.
And he tries some one-liners, but they never really land well like Leon's. But I mean, he has to have some sense of humor in these crazy situations. There was one line that made me chuckle a little bit. It was in the swamp section when he's being chased by the mutated Moru. He pulls the giant boat out of the water and says,
Caught myself a big one.
but besides the voice acting, the actual sounds and effects are so good, especially the guns. So expect some fantastic sound design. So the characters from Resident Evil 8 are pretty decent. Some are great, like Heisenberg or Chris, but others are mediocre. So let's get started with the main good ones. Ethan Winters is back from RE7. In this game, he has way more personality, but I already touched on this, so I'll keep it brief. Ethan in this game has to save his now dismembered daughter Rosemary before Mother Miranda can perform the ceremony. He really is a good dude that puts his family first and goes through way too much pain. Now let's get to Chris Redfield.
I told you to leave it alone, Ethan. You are in the way.
What do you care, Chris? You killed my wife, you son of a b****.
You think I killed Mia? That wasn't her. It was Miranda.
What?
She's a bioweapon.
Chris is one of the series' iconic characters, along with Claire Redfield, his sister, Leon Kennedy, or Jill Valentine. Chris is back with another new design that's more like the old models, and not whatever he was in 7. Thankfully he's not evil, and if you're watching this, you probably already know that. When he shot Mia, that wasn't Mia, that was Miranda acting as Mia to kidnap Rose, and that's why Chris killed her. There's nothing much about him besides that he's a likable, boulder-punching guy. Now let's talk about the 4 lords. The biggest one of them all, and the most famous, is obviously a Lady Dimitrescu.
Mother, I bring you fresh prey.
You are so kind to me, daughters. Now, let's take a look at him. Well, Ethan Winters. You escaped my little brother's idiot games, did you? Let's see how special you are.
Yes, Mother.
Yes, Mother. Starting to go a little stale.
Then let's devour his man-flesh quickly, Mother. I am the one who captured him.
Now, daughters. First, I must inform Mother Miranda. But later, well, there will be enough for everyone. Budama!
She was famous on the internet a few months ago and still today for, well, that. She's definitely one of the best characters in the game. She's tall, has razor sharp claws, and is pretty intimidating, unless you don't see her that way in, well, another way. She has 3 daughters, Cassandra, Bella, and Daniela. She made in experiments. She was one of Miranda's 4 mold experiments and was the second most successful behind Heisenberg. But I mean, she really hates Ethan, like with a passion. And I mean, it makes sense. He killed her daughters. I mean, they deserved it. But I still understand why she's pissed. But it's a bit annoying that we didn't get to learn more about her, and disappointing how little she was actually in the game. Next, Moru.
Mother Miranda, if it's for you, I'd do anything.
I'll just be taking this.
Wait. What are you doing with Mother's special child?
She's not hers.
Oh, you have something to say?
What do you mean, Mother's special child?
Mother wants her baby back.
Don't screw with me.
Wait, please. If you take it, then the others will laugh at me. But if I do better than them...
What do I care?
Wait, just a little longer, please.
What's so funny?
You're stupid. You talk too much. It's all over. I plucked away his.
What do you
His body. I won't let you, please.
The pathetic mutated monster that lives in the swamp. I'm guessing this was the least successful experiment because he really is pathetic. But that doesn't mean he isn't powerful. He has this weird goo stuff that he can grow out of the ground, and once mutated, is a dangerous giant fish. He really is barely in the game either, but I liked him. He's extremely loyal to Mother Miranda too. There's nothing really to say about him. Now we have Donna Beneviento.
Don't leave. I can't let you. You're still alive. I tried to murder you. TikTok. Your life is on the line.
Wait!
She's a puppeteer with a frickin' weird basement. Her doll can float, or she can make it seem that way. I don't really know how that's happening, but she only really has one line. You barely even hear her in the game, but I don't really care. It's more about the doll. Like Moru, she's barely in the game, and isn't all that interesting, but she was actually pretty decent. Finally, the last lord, and the best one in my opinion, Heisenberg.
Truth hurts, though. Let me guess. You're thinking, take me out like the others, and then he gets to go and save Rose, right?
I'm healing my daughter.
Look, you got this all wrong. It's a mental. Shut your fucking hole! Sorry about that. Take a seat. Listen, Ethan, you're being played.
What are you talking about? You think this is a game?
I said sit!
I love this guy. He has a really interesting character. He was the most successful Megamycete experiment and the most powerful out of the four, and he also hates Mother Miranda. And he doesn't want to be a part of her family, and I don't blame him. The entire game, you think he's truly evil, but once you get to the factory, he tells Ethan that Mother Miranda is actually testing Ethan and wants him to be her right-hand man.
It's a test. To see if you're strong enough to be a part of Miranda's family.
I don't want to be a part of Miranda's family.
Neither did I, but here we are. And I'm next in line, right? Kill me, move up the chain, well, f*** that!
Heisenberg wanted to use Rose to kill Miranda, and obviously Ethan doesn't like that some guy he doesn't know is trying to use his daughter as a weapon. I'm sad they didn't flesh him out more, because he was one of the better Ari villains lately. Now, the big one. The bad one. The one and only Mother Miranda. She's okay. I mean, she's not bad, but she wasn't really too interesting to me, but she is very important to the rest of the series. She was a student of Oswald Spencer, one of the 3 founders of Umbrella. They found a Megamycete and did experiments, and while she wanted to use it to resurrect her dead daughter, Spencer wanted to use it for, well, controlling human evolution, so they split ways, and he went to create Umbrella because of the experiment. So her backstory is pretty interesting, that she actually kind of helped one of the founders start Umbrella, but her actual character wasn't too interesting, but she served as a pretty good villain. Now to the last character, and one of my favorites, the Duke.
Oh, we meet again.
Duke? Why are you here?
Where there's coin to be made. And have you found your daughter?
No.
If she is truly here, the lady of the castle would have kept little Rose in her private chambers, would she not?
Dimitrescu?
The very same. Why don't you take a look? Maybe you'll get lucky. And speaking of looking, care to make a purchase?
We barely know anything about him, but I really like him. He's nice and helps Ethan along the way, selling him stuff. He does tell Ethan some pretty major information about Rose and the 4 lords, and helps Ethan get to Mother Miranda at the end in his carriage. But there's not a lot to say about him other than that he's awesome. Those were all the major characters, and overall, there's a pretty decent balance of them. The boss fights are actually pretty good in this game. None of them were insanely good or creative, but they were all in good fun. In terms of the main boss fights that you have to do, there's around 12. I'm just going to get the 3 daughters out of the way. I don't really see these fights as bosses, just minor inconveniences that are pretty easy to win. Just blast open a window because the cold air makes them weak, then shoot. Nothing else to say about them. Now the first big one. The first big one is Lady Dimitrescu herself. She turns into a giant dragon after you stab her with a special dagger.
You ruined everything!
You have to run around the highest point of the castle, and it's pretty decent. After you make it to the Beneviento house, I do count this one as a boss fight. After you solve this puzzle with a giant doll, you get a medallion to a door that opens a room that contains a breaker box key for the elevator. Once you get it and you make your way back to the room, the doll is gone. There's blood everywhere, and there's a giant umbilical cord. Once you get to the elevator, a giant fetus comes out of nowhere and starts chasing you. You have to hide and escape until you eventually get a fuse for the elevator and leave. Right after that, you get thrown into the Angie doll boss fight, where you have to find her in the midst of a bunch of dolls that will try and kill you if you don't find her fast enough. You have to find her 3 times and stab her in the head. And when you stab her for the 3rd time, whoa, so crazy, what a surprise, you weren't stabbing the doll. You were stabbing Donna Beneviento herself. Next is a pretty fun one. Moru turns into a giant fish that can spit toxic acid. You have to use explosive like mines and explosive rounds from your grenade launcher to expose him, and then you can unload your ammo on him. It goes on for a bit, but it's fun and pretty creative. Now we have the big guy with the hammer in the beginning. Urias is a pretty okay boss that can hurt you pretty bad. You get a nice big crystal hammer the Duke would love to buy for a lot, all while he throws a few lichens at you and chases you with his hammer. He takes a lot of damage, but it's worth it. Next we have Sturm. This guy has 3 spinning chainsaws and is the guy that chased you a few times throughout the factory. This one's alright. You first have to juke him out a bit to make him crash into the walls and make it a bigger fighting field. And once he's crashed into the wall, shoot his weak spot, and eventually he'll start spitting fire. This one I didn't like too much. It's not bad at all. It just goes on, isn't super fun. Finally, we have the Last Lord. In my opinion, this is the best boss fight. The mutated Heisenberg is a superb boss fight that's just super fun. You're in a giant tank with chainsaws and a cannon that Chris made. Shoot his 3 weak points with your automatic gun and your cannon. It's just super fun to fight, though eventually Heisenberg sucks you in and you fall out of the tank, and now you're on your feet and you have to use your weapons. Honestly, probably my favorite boss fight in an RE game ever. Now the last 2. The next one is a short one against a bigger Lycan when you play as Chris. Unload your bullets into his back and eventually use your pointer to have a member of Chris's squad shoot it with his giant cannon thing. It's pretty fun and short, but it's a good one. Finally, we have Miranda herself. This goes on for a bit, but it's interesting. Just shoot, shoot, shoot. She'll try to hit you with her mold and arms, and she'll eventually grow spider legs and go at you with those. Then she'll have wings and swoop down and throw other mold at you. Then it'll go black, and you have to rely on audio to tell where she is. Then you just have to unload, and then she's dead. Overall, it was decently difficult, but pretty fun. So the bosses were either decent, great, or okay. But there are a few side ones like Otto or Varkalak. They eat your bullets, but do give you good treasures that make it worth it that the Duke will buy for quite a bit. They're less fun, but are worth it. Capcom did a pretty good job with the boss fights. The Mercenaries mode finally returns after being absent from the last few games. And I'll admit, I've never played them, but this mode is just fun. You have to kill all the enemies and grab ammo and lead to get a good score, all under a timer that goes up every time you kill. It's shockingly super fun, and I found myself replaying a lot for a better score. It's also pretty difficult to get a high score. And if you get an SS on all areas, you unlock a lightsaber that can be used in the main game. I have yet to unlock it, and my highest score was an S, and that was only on one map. There are combos, and you obviously get more points for headshots, and you sell stuff that you don't really need to buy more upgrades and weapons, but this is just pure fun that people really enjoy. Now that we're done with the main things, I want to look at each area real quick. First, the village. The village is really the main area of the game that contains many treasures and enemies. It is a really interesting and detailed area with a good amount of things to find, and it even has its own secret boss fight. There's animals to find, so you can cook food upgrades, and there's new guns and treasures that you can sell to the Duke for some sweet, sweet loot. There's not much else to talk about, but it serves as a great hub-like area. Castle Dimitrescu is one of the stronger areas in the game, with many enemies, including the big vampire woman herself, as well as her 3 daughters stalking you. It all interconnects well, and has that classic RE mansion feel. Eventually, it's pretty difficult to even walk around without running into Lady D or one of the daughters. There's many different rooms with treasures or items for you to find. It's really fun and cool to explore. You also get to see some darker areas like the dungeon with the ghouls that really soak up your bullets. Overall, one of the best areas. Next is House Beneviento. This section isn't my favorite to explore, but is my favorite to play through. This place has the scariest section in the game, and in my opinion, the scariest moment in the entire series, as well as being the most scary section in a video game I've ever played. Once you get to the basement, you find a flask sitting on Angie, but the lights go out and all your stuff gets taken away. It's a really creative section that's pretty tense. You have to solve this doll puzzle that holds a medallion that opens a door to a room with a breaker box key that powers the elevator. And once you get it, like I said earlier, there's blood all over the place with a giant umbilical cord. Once you make it to the elevator, a giant fetus comes out of nowhere and starts chasing you. It is so scary and tense. It's supposed to resemble a mutated version of Rose to make Ethan go insane, and when you make it to a new area of the basement, it has lights and you think it's gone. You find a fuse and everything goes dark. You make it back to the door to the main area, and surprise, surprise, the baby pops out, and it's the first time I've ever heard Ethan legitimately scared. Once you escape after hiding, you can power on the elevator and escape that nightmare. Then it's the Angie boss, which I already covered, and man, this section was just really good with disturbing psychological horror. Great job, Capcom. Next, the swamp. This is an action-packed thriller section of fighting and running. There's a giant fish, which you learn is actually Moru. He chases you around on floating platforms, and you have to power on the windmills, all while the giant Moru is chasing you. And eventually, you turn on the power and drain the water. And then there's a boss fight with Moru, but again, I already covered that. So it's just a fun section. Nothing really wrong with it, just action-packed. Finally, we arrive at the factory. In my opinion, this is the worst part of the game. It's not bad at all, it's just not that fun, and it goes on a while with really annoying enemies. Plus, there's a propeller monster boss fight that happens to be very similar to a monster from a 2013 film called Frankenstein's Army, and the director called out Capcom for it. I don't necessarily think they plagiarized or copied, but it's most likely an inspiration that they didn't credit, but it is a possibility that they made it up themselves. I'm not saying they didn't get inspiration, but this design, it really isn't that crazy. Two people could have definitely come up with it without inspiration. But besides that, this section all looks the same, isn't super fun, but it does give you access to some really powerful weapons that you can buy, plus Heisenberg talks, and that's always a positive. Overall, it's okay, but it's probably the worst section. Now the last section, the Molded Village. This is just the village, obviously, but the Mega MIC is everywhere now, and you're playing as Chris Redfield going to eliminate Miranda. This is just pure fun, and the game puts you in the boulder punching arms of a guy whose weapon destroy lichens in seconds. It's just so dang fun, ripping through enemies like it's nothing. Eventually, you do find Mia Winters healthy and alive in a jail cell. Then Ethan wakes up somewhere mysterious, and the truth is explained to you after Chris and Mia talk by Evelyn. She tells him he's always been dead, and you know what? I'll just let you watch.
Dead? I mean, Miranda. She... no. I still have to save Rose.
Wrong. It wasn't Miranda. You were always dead.
What are you saying? I can still...
See? Miranda didn't kill you. You mean you didn't think it was weird? No matter how much you got hurt? Remember. 3 years ago, the Baker house. You were murdered by Jack. You died there 3 years ago.
That's impossible. No way.
You shouldn't even be able to walk around.
Quit messing with my head.
You shouldn't be walking.
Screw you! What am I? I did all that. Rose. Mia.
Now do you get it? Your whole body is nothing but mold. You can't ever see your family again.
Family. No. Rose. I have to save my daughter.
You're already dead. Dead!
I will save Rose!
So after that, you wake up in the Duke's carriage, and he's taking you to Mother Miranda to fight her. Then, the final boss. But again, I already touched on this, so I'll let you see what happens to Ethan after this.
Keep moving, Ethan. There's a bomb in that thing that'll blow this whole village sky high. Hey, look at me. When I hit this trigger, we can't be anywhere near it. Ah, damn it. Mia's waiting for you. She's alive, you hear me? Alive.
Mia, I'm so sorry. I love you. Keep Rose safe.
Hey, hey. Hey. Hey, you tell yourself. Now come on, it's not that much further.
Watch over her. Teach her to be strong.
God damn.
Goodbye, Rosemary.
Ethan.
So this is a fun final section that's full of action, and it serves the game really well as an ending. So that's it. That's all I have to say. I had a really fun time with this game, and I think any other RE fan would too. Or at least fans of RE7 are for. This game is just really, really good, and I can't recommend it enough. But let's be honest here, if you're watching this, you either don't care about spoilers, you've already played it, or you've already seen playthroughs of it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.